So what even is a superpower? It's not just about having cool capes and flying, though that would be pretty awesome. Not gonna lie. In the world of countries, being a superpower means you're kind of the main character. You've got the biggest economy, or at least one of them. Your military is so powerful that other countries think twice, maybe even 3 times, before messing with you or your buddies. And culturally, your movies, your music, your McDonald's, they're everywhere. It's like being the school quarterback, the prom king, and the valedictorian all rolled into one, but for nations. You set trends, you call some of the shots, and when you speak, people generally listen, even if they pretend they're not. America has been wearing that superpower jersey for a good while now. Think about it. After World War II, much of Europe was, a bit broken. America stepped up, helped rebuild, and then found itself in this massive staring contest with the Soviet Union called the Cold War. When that ended and the Berlin Wall came down, it was like America was the last one standing in the global talent show. Suddenly, it was the sole superpower. That's a heavy title, right? It means everyone's looking at you to solve problems, to lead the way, and maybe even to pay for stuff. It's a big responsibility, and let's be honest, a pretty sweet parking spot in the world. This whole superpower gig means your decisions ripple out across the planet. If America's economy sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold, or at least starts nervously checking its temperature. If America decides to get involved in a conflict somewhere or decides not to, that changes everything for the people on the ground. It's about having influence, serious influence over global events, international rules, and even how other countries think about things like democracy or human rights. It's not just about being strong, it's about projecting that strength and using it to shape the world for better or worse, depending on who you ask and on what day. But here we are in 2025, specifically May 30th, and people are starting to whisper. They're looking at America and saying, "Hey, are you feeling okay? You look a little stressed?" The confidence, the swagger, it seems a bit wobbly for some. Is the jersey getting a little tight? Is the crown a bit heavy? These aren't just idle questions from folks on Twitter. These are serious discussions happening in capitals around the world. The idea that America's dominant role might be changing, or at least facing some serious challenges, is no longer a fringe theory. It's become a very real conversation. And that's what we're diving into. Is the American empire, if you want to call it that, truly in crisis? Let's unpack it. So, why all the fuss? Why are people suddenly looking at America like it's a Jenga tower with a few too many blocks pulled out? Well, it's not just one thing. It's more like a perfect storm of uh-oh moments. Imagine your phone is suddenly lagging, your favorite app keeps crashing, and your battery drains in like an hour. You'd be worried, right? That's kind of the vibe some people are getting about America's global standing. There's a general feeling that the unshakable confidence of the past has been replaced by a whole lot of question marks. It's a sense that the old playbook might not be working anymore. This anxiety isn't just coming from America's rivals, the countries that might actually enjoy seeing Uncle Sam stumble a bit. It's also coming from allies, from people who rely on American leadership and stability. They're looking at the world stage, seeing all these fires popping up, and then looking at America, wondering if it still has enough fire extinguishers, or even the desire to use them. It's like when you're at a party, and the host, who's usually the life of it, is suddenly hiding in the kitchen looking overwhelmed. Everyone else starts to get a little nervous, wondering who's going to keep the music playing and the snacks coming. The sources of this concern are pretty varied. You've got complex international crises brewing in different corners of the globe, which we'll get into. Then you've got the situation back home in America, which, let's be honest, has been looking like a particularly dramatic reality TV show for a few years now. When the country that's supposed to be leading the free world can't seem to agree on what day it is, it makes other countries a little hesitant to follow. It's this combination of external pressures and internal fractures that really fuels the "Is America okay?" narrative. And it's not like these worries appeared overnight. Think of it as a slow leak rather than a sudden puncture. Little things, then bigger things, start to add up. Foreign policy decisions that didn't pan out, economic shifts, the rise of other powerful nations who are keen to have more say, all these factors contribute to the current unease. So when people talk about an American crisis, they're often pointing to this accumulation of challenges that, taken together, seem to suggest that the era of unquestioned American dominance might be facing its most significant test yet. It's a lot to take in, I know. Now let's talk about Ukraine. This situation is like that incredibly loud argument your neighbors are having, and suddenly they're banging on your door asking for help, sugar, and maybe a tank. Russia invades Ukraine, a sovereign nation, and the world, especially America, has to decide what to do. This isn't just some small regional skirmish, it's a major land war in Europe, something many thought was a thing of the past. And America, as a leading member of NATO and a global power, found itself right in the middle of it, whether it fully wanted to be or not. It's a massive test of American resolve and its ability to rally international support. America's response has been significant. Billions in aid, weapons, sanctions against Russia. The goal? To help Ukraine defend itself and to show Russia that, hey, you can't just redraw borders whenever you feel like it. But this involvement comes with huge costs and risks. It strains American resources, both financial and military. It also forces America to walk a very fine line. How much support is enough to help Ukraine without escalating the conflict into a direct confrontation between NATO and Russia? That's a scary thought, like trying to put out a fire without accidentally igniting a much bigger one next door. This conflict is a clear example of how America's role as a superpower is being challenged. Other countries are watching very closely. Can America sustain this level of commitment? Will its allies stick together? What does this mean for other potential hotspots around the world? If America is seen as faltering in Ukraine, or if the Western alliance cracks, it could embolden other nations with, let's say, expansionist ambitions. It's a high-stakes drama where America's credibility as a global leader is constantly being evaluated by allies and adversaries alike. Every move is scrutinized, every success and every setback. And then there's the domestic angle. Not everyone in America is on the same page about how involved the U.S. should be. Some say, help Ukraine, no matter the cost. Others are saying, hey, we have problems at home. Why are we spending so much money over there? This internal debate makes it harder for American leaders to project a united front and maintain long-term support. It's like trying to play quarterback when half your team is arguing about which play to run. The Ukraine crisis isn't just about geopolitics. It's also a mirror reflecting America's own internal divisions and its evolving sense of responsibility in a messy world. Next up on the global worry list, Gaza. If Ukraine is a test of strength and alliances, Gaza is a test of diplomacy, morality, and America's ability to navigate an incredibly complex and emotionally charged conflict. The situation between Israelis and Palestinians has been a source of tension for decades, a seemingly endless cycle of violence and heartbreak. And America has always played a significant role in trying to manage it, or at least prevent it from exploding into an even wider regional war. This isn't just a distant problem. It deeply affects America's relationships in the Middle East, and its standing with many nations. America finds itself in a super tricky position. It's a staunch ally of Israel, providing significant military and diplomatic support. At the same time, it also expresses concern for the humanitarian situation of Palestinians in Gaza, and officially supports a two-state solution, even if that solution looks more like a distant dream every day. So, when conflict erupts, like the recent and devastating events, America is trying to support Israel's security and push for humanitarian aid and de-escalation. That's like trying to be best friends with two people who are in the middle of a very messy, very public breakup. It's almost impossible to keep everyone happy. The world watches America's every move in this crisis with intense scrutiny. For many in the Arab world and beyond, America's strong support for Israel is seen as enabling the suffering of Palestinians. This perception damages America's image and influence in the region, making it harder to achieve other diplomatic goals. Protests erupt not just in the Middle East, but globally, including within the United States itself. The moral complexities are immense, and there are no easy answers, which means America often ends up alienating someone, no matter what it does. It's a diplomatic minefield where every step could trigger an explosion of criticism. This crisis also highlights the limits of American power. Despite its influence, the U.S. hasn't been able to broker a lasting peace. Its calls for restraint or for a clear path forward often get lost in the intensity of the conflict itself. The situation in Gaza contributes to the narrative that America, despite its superpower status, is struggling to manage or resolve some of the world's most intractable problems. It's another piece of the puzzle when people ask if America is losing its grip, because if you can't bring peace to a situation you've been involved in for so long, it raises questions about your overall effectiveness on the global stage. All right, let's shift our gaze to East Asia, specifically to Taiwan. This situation is like a high-stakes poker game where the chips are global stability and the world's tech supply. China, which has become a massive economic and military power itself, considers Taiwan a breakaway province that must eventually be reunified with the mainland, by force, if necessary. Taiwan, on the other hand, sees itself as a sovereign, democratic entity and has been governing itself for decades. And America? Well, America is in the middle, with a policy often described as strategic ambiguity. It's like saying, we won't tell you exactly what we'll do if you attack, but you probably won't like it. The stakes here are astronomically high. Taiwan is a democratic success story, and it's also a global powerhouse in manufacturing advanced semiconductors, those tiny chips that run pretty much everything, from your smartphone to your car to advanced military equipment. A conflict over Taiwan wouldn't just be a regional war, it would send shockwaves through the global economy, potentially triggering a worldwide recession or, honestly, even worse. It would also likely draw the United States and China, two nuclear-armed powers, into direct confrontation. That's not just a crisis, that's a potential cataclysm. No pressure, right? America's challenge is to deter China from using force against Taiwan, while also maintaining crucial economic and diplomatic ties with Beijing. It's a delicate balancing act that seems to get more precarious every year as China's military capabilities grow and its rhetoric becomes more assertive. The U.S. provides Taiwan with defensive weapons and engages in diplomatic signaling to show its commitment, but there's always the question, if push came to shove, what would America really do? And would it be enough? This uncertainty is part of the strategy, but it also creates a lot of anxiety. This standoff with China over Taiwan is perhaps one of the most significant long-term challenges to America's global position. China is actively working to reshape the international order to better suit its interests, and Taiwan is a key flashpoint in this broader competition. How America navigates this will say a lot about its ability to manage the rise of a peer competitor and maintain stability in a critical region of the world. It's another major global headache that contributes to the feeling that the American-led order is under serious strain, testing its diplomatic, economic, and military limits all at once. Now, we can't talk about America's current global challenges without taking a little trip down memory lane, can we? Specifically to Iraq and Afghanistan. These weren't just minor oopsie-daisies. These were long, incredibly costly wars, both in terms of human lives and treasure, and they've left some deep scars on the American psyche and its international reputation. These experiences are like those embarrassing family stories that keep getting brought up at Thanksgiving, except instead of just making everyone cringe, they've had profound geopolitical consequences. They've fundamentally shaped how many Americans and the world view U.S. foreign intervention. The war in Iraq, launched in 2003 based on intelligence about weapons of mass destruction that turned out to be, well, not there, became a deeply divisive and protracted conflict. It destabilized the region, arguably contributed to the rise of extremist groups like ISIS, and cost trillions of dollars. The promise of a quick, decisive victory and a flourishing democracy gave way to a long, messy occupation and a lot of questions about the judgment and motives behind the invasion. This experience eroded trust both domestically and internationally in American leadership and its use of intelligence. It's a big part of why regime change isn't as popular a phrase as it once was in Washington. Then there's Afghanistan. America went in after 9/11 to oust the Taliban and hunt down al-Qaeda. 20 years later, after immense sacrifice and investment, the U.S. withdrew, and the Taliban swiftly retook control of the country. The chaotic scenes during the withdrawal in 2021 were a painful symbol for many, raising questions about what exactly had been achieved after 2 decades of war. It led to a lot of soul-searching about the limits of American power to reshape other societies and whether these prolonged nation-building efforts were worth the enormous cost. For many, it felt like a deeply disheartening full circle. These forever wars, as they came to be known, have had a lasting impact. They've made the American public more skeptical of foreign interventions and more wary of grand promises from their leaders about fixing faraway problems. They've also made allies question America's reliability and strategic foresight. The Fair Observer noted that these disasters marked a turning point from earlier, more successful crisis management. So, when America faces new crises today, like Ukraine or Gaza, the ghosts of Iraq and Afghanistan are always hovering in the background, influencing decisions and fueling the debate about America's proper role in the world. So, while all this drama is unfolding on the world stage, Ukraine, Gaza, Taiwan, there's another major show happening, and it's right inside America's own house. I'm talking about domestic political turmoil. You know, the constant bickering between Republicans and Democrats that often feels less like a serious debate and more like a food fight at a very fancy, very important dinner party. This internal division isn't just entertainment for political junkies. It has real, tangible effects on America's ability to act decisively and cohesively on the global stage. It's hard to lead the world when you can't even agree on directions. Think about it. Major foreign policy decisions often require bipartisan support to be sustainable. If one party pushes something through, the next administration, led by the other party, might just come in and undo it all. This creates uncertainty for allies and opportunities for adversaries. For example, continued aid to Ukraine has faced significant hurdles in Congress due to disagreements, largely along party lines. This makes allies nervous. They wonder, can we count on America in the long run, or will its policies change every 4 to 8 years? That's not exactly a recipe for stable international relations. The polarization we see in American society, amplified by social media and partisan news outlets, has seeped into almost every aspect of life, including foreign policy, which used to have a bit more consensus. There was a time when politics was said to stop at the water's edge, meaning that when it came to foreign threats, Americans would largely stand united. That feels like a distant memory now. Today, foreign policy issues often become just another weapon in the partisan wars, used to score points against the other side rather than to find the best path forward for the country. This internal strife, as noted by sources like the Fair Observer, weakens America's global position. If the country is perceived as deeply divided and unable to govern itself effectively, its credibility as a global leader takes a hit. How can America promote democracy abroad if its own democratic processes seem constantly under stress? How can it call for unity in other nations if it can't find it at home? This internal disarray is a significant factor in the American crisis narrative, suggesting that some of the biggest challenges to American power might actually be coming from within its own borders. All right, we can't really talk about America's future role in the world without addressing the giant orange-hued elephant in the room, or at least the potential for one to return. The possibility of Donald Trump becoming president again is a huge factor in all these discussions about American crisis and its global standing. Why? Because his America First approach to foreign policy was a pretty radical departure from how U.S. presidents, both Republican and Democrat, had operated for decades, and the idea of him returning brings a whole new level of unpredictability to an already very unpredictable world. During his presidency, Trump questioned long-standing alliances like NATO, pulled out of international agreements like the Paris Climate Accord and the Iran nuclear deal, and generally preferred a more transactional, go-it-alone approach. He wasn't shy about criticizing allies or cozying up to traditional adversaries. For some of his supporters, this was exactly what America needed, a leader who put American interests, as he defined them, above all else, shaking up a stale global order. They saw it as strength, a refusal to be taken advantage of by other countries. However, for many traditional foreign policy experts and a lot of America's allies, this approach was deeply alarming. They saw it as undermining the international system that America itself had helped build, weakening alliances that were crucial for collective security, and creating a vacuum that other powers like China and Russia were eager to fill. The concern now, as Fair Observer points out, is that a second Trump presidency could accelerate a retreat from global leadership and further deepen those internal divisions we just talked about. It's like the world is holding its breath, waiting to see which version of America shows up to the party. This uncertainty itself is a destabilizing force. Allies wonder if they need to start hedging their bets, preparing for a world where America might be a less reliable partner. Adversaries might see an opportunity to push their agendas, sensing a more isolationist America. So the mere prospect of such a significant shift in U.S. foreign policy adds another layer of complexity to the crises in Ukraine, the tensions over Taiwan, and the broader question of America's role. It's not just about who is president, it's about what kind of superpower America wants to be, and that question seems very much up in the air. So, after all this talk of crises in Ukraine, Gaza, Taiwan, those not-so-great memories of Iraq and Afghanistan, and the political WWE match happening at home, what's the bottom line? Is the American empire, or superpower status, or whatever you want to call it, actually crumbling? Well, it's complicated. It's definitely facing a whole heap of challenges, probably more at one time than it has in decades. It's like trying to juggle flaming torches while riding a unicycle on a tightrope during an earthquake. Yeah, it's that kind of tricky. To stay strong, or at least to navigate this incredibly complex world, America probably needs to do some serious thinking. First, it needs to figure out what its role in the 21st century should actually be. Is it the world's policeman? Is it just one of several major powers? Does it want to lead? And if so, how? These are big questions without easy answers. And crucially, it needs to find some way to bridge the massive divides at home. A country that's constantly at war with itself will find it very hard to project strength and coherence to the rest of the world. Unity, or at least a bit more of it, seems pretty essential. This means fostering a more informed and less polarized debate about foreign policy. It means recognizing that long-term global stability often requires more than just military might. It needs smart diplomacy, economic cooperation, and a commitment to shared values. It also probably means learning from past mistakes, understanding what worked and what really didn't, and applying those lessons to current challenges. It's about being realistic about what America can achieve, but also not shrinking from responsibilities where its leadership is genuinely needed and can make a positive difference. Ultimately, the future of American influence isn't just going to happen, it will be shaped by the choices America makes, both internally and externally. The country has faced enormous challenges before: economic depressions, world wars, civil unrest, and has found ways to adapt and endure. The question now, on this day, May 30th, 2025, is whether it still has that capacity for renewal and a shared vision for the future. Can America get its groove back? The world is watching, with a mix of hope, anxiety, and a whole lot of popcorn. It's going to be an interesting show, that's for sure.